Hi everyone, I'm writing here because I don't know how to cope with the overwhelming guilt, anxiety, and panic attacks I've been experiencing since everything came crashing down. I'm 26 female, and my boyfriend, 27, and I had been together for 4 years, living together for one of those years. We had a good relationship. At least that's how it felt at the beginning, before the novelty wore off. But I ended up betraying him in a horrible way. Over the course of 3 months, I had an affair with someone I met on Facebook, and we slept together 16 times. At first, I justified it to myself, made excuses, and kept it secret. But in May, the full realization of what I'd done hit me hard. The guilt was unbearable. I knew I had not only broken my own values, but had deeply disrespected my boyfriend, someone who had trusted me and loved me for years. The thought of how this would hurt him, emotionally, psychologically, and even physically, haunted me. I knew that if he ever found out, it would devastate him, and that was the last thing I wanted. But by then, it was too late. Anxiety and panic attacks began to take over my life as the weight of my actions grew heavier. Every moment was filled with the fear of being found out, and the guilt consumed me. I decided I had to end things with my affair partner. When I told him it was over, he refused to accept it and even threatened to tell my boyfriend and everyone else. I was terrified, but I stood firm and told him I couldn't continue. The next day, I blocked him everywhere. Unfortunately, AP followed through with his threats. He sent my boyfriend screenshots, videos, and a detailed timeline of our affair. Everything was out in the open. My boyfriend found out about the affair in the worst possible way, and it shattered him. That same evening, he packed up his clothes and left. He didn't yell, didn't ask questions, didn't give me a chance to explain. He just left. I haven't heard from him since, and I don't even know where he is. It's been 2 days, but it feels like 2 years. I feel lost. Panic attacks, anxiety, and guilt have only gotten worse since he left. I'm constantly reading books about infidelity, trying to understand why I did this. I wanted to disclose every detail of the affair to my boyfriend once the truth came out. I wanted to be transparent, answer all his questions, and take full responsibility. But he didn't give me the chance. He didn't talk to me at all. He just left and never even sent a single text afterwards. I don't know how to approach this situation now. I want to respect his space, but I also want to reach out and apologize, tell him how deeply sorry I am for what I've done, and answer any questions he might have. But what if reaching out only makes things worse? What if he doesn't want to hear from me at all? I can't stop thinking about the future we had planned together, and now I fear I've destroyed all of that. How do I deal with this crushing guilt? How do I manage the anxiety and panic attacks that hit me every time I think about what I've done? I've lost the person I love, and I don't know how to cope with the idea that I'll never be able to make it right. Thank you for reading. Update: D-Day was 3 weeks ago. Some of my ex's belongings are still at my place, and I haven't touched them. It feels wrong to just move or pack them up without his permission, but I also don't want to keep living with these constant reminders of what I've lost. It's like every corner of my apartment holds memories of us, and now I'm planning to sell it because it's become unbearable to stay here. It feels like living with the ghost of our past, a constant reminder of the life I destroyed. On top of that, I still have pictures of us on my Facebook. He asked me to take them down, and I haven't done it yet. He has already changed his Facebook status to single, unsurprisingly. I'm struggling with letting go, even though I know it's the right thing to do. I want to respect their wishes, but I guess part of me isn't ready to erase those memories completely. I know I've robbed him of his emotional, psychological, and sexual safety, and the least I can do is give him the closure to rebuild. It's been lonely, but I realize that my priority needs to be his healing, even if that means I have to distance myself from people we both care about. I've offered to go to couples counseling, but they declined, saying they wanted nothing to do with me. I completely understand and respect that decision. I'm working through my own issues with my therapist and doing a lot of self-reflection. I've been trying to make real changes in my personality and the way I approach relationships, but I know it's going to take time and consistent effort. I've communicated to my ex that I fully acknowledge my wrongdoing and the immense pain I've caused him. I've let him know that I'm committed to putting in the work and that, while I would love to rebuild with double the effort, I recognize that it's not my decision. My priority is his healing and happiness, whether that includes me or not. And while it's incredibly painful to accept that, I know it's the right thing to do. I also wanted to reach out to other waywards and ask how you dealt with the guilt, the panic attacks, and the inability to even look at yourself in the mirror. Does it ever get better? Right now, I'm honestly not sure if I'll ever be able to forgive myself for what I've done to someone who was so good to me. It feels like my life lessons are coming at the cost of their trauma, and the thought of that haunts me every day. Story 2. She tried to replace me in my own life. Twice. She cheated on me many times and I never knew it. But there were 2 times she tried to just flat out replace me in my own life. The first time I was totally blindsided. She was spending so much time with this other guy and our kid that the guy asked if he could still hang out with him after I confronted him. I was extremely close to being replaced and unceremoniously dumped, and the only reason it ended was because he tried to get the money she was taking from him back and threatened to tell me about the affair, so she had to come clean. A few years later, and we had reconciled. I took a job hours away, and since she didn't want to move, I was constantly driving back and forth, trying to make it work. She insisted we could do it and was very supportive of the decision. She had started the second long-term affair months before I even had to make the decision about the job. I caught her as a result of a combination of things. She was always out of the house during COVID lockdown. Nothing was open. Then I returned to work and called one night. She didn't answer, but our kid did. Before he could say who she was with, she ripped the phone out of his hand and insisted it was just them. I knew deep down what was happening right there. A few weeks later, I got an embarrassed call from someone who didn't know what exactly was happening, but saw suspicious pictures she was tagged in that got posted that she immediately took down, but they managed to get screenshots of. She was stunned when I confronted her. She had been bringing our child around this guy for months and was telling him to keep it a secret, or I would get mad and he would get in trouble. The kid was panicking when I told him I knew, and he didn't have to carry that around anymore. He thought he had messed up and let the secret out. We were both devastated. I immediately filed for divorce. Now my kid will be hours and hours away while she just moves this guy right in, and she gets to continue on as if it all worked out for her. The courts will just split our time and dust off their hands. The guy's a drunk, and according to my kid, is a toxic jerk. His own words without prompting or even being asked. She'll be done with him in a year. Tops, now that is no fun sneaking him around and moving someone else just as bad. All my years of loving and diligent parenting and trying to hold a chaotic nightmare together, and this is what I get. Shoveled off and pushed aside like trash as I tried desperately to keep my son from blaming himself and hating his mother. It really sucks. Bad. I've since learned she has cheated probably a total of 5 or 6 times, and even bragged about a few of them behind my back. Everyone knew but me, and nobody told me till now. She thinks it's all a joke. Edit, I've lawyered up, and I keep our communication to only what needs to be said about our son. Unfortunately, full custody is a pipe dream where we are getting the divorce unless there is absolute proof that she is an immediate threat to him, personally. Most courts won't even entertain the fact that she is an emotional train wreck and a manipulative liar either. Some of her funniest jokes at parties and gatherings were to point out how many times she's been married and what disasters they were. She has an innate ability to convince people that she is a great, loving, caring person who has it all together, in stark contrast to the disaster her relationships have been. People laugh right along with her, and it's all a good time. I have no doubt that as soon as she got served, at her work no less, she was making jokes about number 3, and everyone was joking and having a good time. She's already past middle age and works extremely hard to work out and try to keep herself in shape too. I can only imagine that it'll get worse as she approaches the stage in her life where she feels she has to do more and more to capture her youth. She'll get more and more unstable and out of control. I can only hope my son can handle the years the court will force him to be with her before she kicks him out of her life, like she did with her other son from a previous marriage. I think I always knew it was a mistake to reconcile. She had alienated me from my family, friends, everything, so I thought I didn't have much of a choice. I was really hesitant to put my son through that too. Now I think that I should have done it back then, But there were other circumstances that happened later that make me a little happier and a little sadder for waiting for this to happen again. It's heartbreaking to read what you've been through. The level of betrayal, especially involving your child and using him as a shield to cover up her actions, is just so devastating. It's one thing to cheat and destroy trust, but to actively manipulate your kid into keeping secrets? That's a whole different level of damage, and I'm so sorry you're going through that. It's clear how much you care about your son, and the fact that you're working so hard to protect him from feeling guilty or blaming himself shows what an amazing parent you are. Kids shouldn't have to bear that kind of emotional burden, and it's commendable that you've made his well-being your priority, even in the face of all this chaos. The way the courts handle things can feel so unfair, especially when it seems like she's just moving on with her life without any real consequences. But your son will see the truth as he grows. He's already starting to recognize the toxicity around him, and your consistent love and presence in his life will have a lasting impact. Don't underestimate how much that matters, even when it feels like you're being pushed aside. It really sucks to hear about the people who knew but didn't tell you. That kind of silence can feel like another betrayal, and it's understandable if you're feeling even more isolated because of it. Just know that her behavior reflects on her, not on you. You didn't deserve this. She'll likely repeat the same patterns, but at least you're out of it now, and you can rebuild your life without her toxic presence.